Coffee talk. I recently I saw a video with the son of Oliver Stone, and he has a show on the internet. It's called Lip TV, and Oliver Stone made many famous movies, but I think he also was kind of a gatekeeper. He made a film about JFK, and the movie is called JFK, and so his son Sean has a channel called the Lip TV, and he interviews people, and I think I saw 2 interviews that he did which interested me, and that was one interview with Michael Aquino, who is the high priest of the Temple of Set, and the second interview was with Fritz Springmeier, whom I declared dead, basically, because I just had this thought that maybe they did something to him and also there was this conspiracy theory that Fritz Springmeier was framed for armed robbery, which didn't make a lot of sense to me because he was a very outspoken Christian. So, and maybe it's just a story, but I think it's even in Wikipedia that he was in prison for armed robbery. I'm not sure. So at least I used to believe that this happened to him and that he was framed for armed robbery. And maybe this didn't even happen. So who knows? And it was very interesting that when it was very funny that he had a slip of tongue, freudian slip, basically, Sean Stone, when he interviewed Fritz Springmeier. Fritz Springmeier said something to the extent that Freemasonry is basically like a kindergarten for the ancient mystery schools, and that they observe them, and if there's someone that they are interested in, they will, like, he could that there would be a possibility for this person to be introduced to the real inner Illuminati, so to say. I don't really like the word. So, but that's what he said. And then he said also that Freemasonry historically was a pretty racist organization, and that nowadays it's possible for black people to be involved with Freemasonry, but basically they just throw them a bone. So there is a separate thing for black people who are Freemasons, which, as far as I know, is the Boule Society, which is basically the York Rite of, or the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. And then suddenly Sean Stone said, that's not true, because in my lodge we have black members. And then it took a while for him to notice what he just said, that he just basically told the whole world that he was a Freemason. And he said, in my lodge we have black members. so he was defending his brothers in Freemasonry, basically. And it took a while for him to realize what he just said. And then he was like looking left and right and left and right and didn't know what to say. And Fritz Springmeier, like he was waiting for questions or something. And he just had to keep talking. Springmeier had to keep talking for like 10-15 minutes, because he really struggled with what he just said. Sean Stone, that basically he just announced to the whole world that he was a member of a Freemasonic lodge, and that they had black members. And you could see in Fritz Springmeier's face there was a little smile, and he just kept talking to make it seem a little less embarrassing, because he just outed him, because Sean Stone just outed himself as a Freemason, and that was pretty funny. And the interview was called The Genealogy of the Illuminati, and I think it's about an hour long, or a little more than that. And it was a very interesting interview, because he basically, I never really understood Fritz Springmeier and how he had access to this knowledge. And he clarified what happened really when he wrote these two books, The Bloodlines of the Illuminati and How to Make Yourself a Totally Undetectable Mind-Controlled Slave. And the book is all about trauma-based mind control. And as the title says, it's all about trauma, and the that they found out that the key to programming the mind of someone is a trauma, because when you are traumatized, everything that happens it stays in your subconscious mind. And if you do that the right way, you can basically program someone like a computer, so that certain things would stay dominant in the subconscious mind throughout their lifetime. And I never really understood the role of Fritz Springmeier, because he used to talk about these things, and I could never figure out how he could have this huge amount of knowledge about these practices. And he clarified that in this interview, and it was very interesting. He said that basically he had friends who were psychologists and who worked with victims of mind control, and he used to research these topics when he was a student very extensively, and so he had some knowledge about that. And he was also, I think he was a Christian pastor, and also his father or grandfather was also a Christian pastor. And he then helped these psychologists to work with these very damaged people. And he said that as a psychologist who works with these people, they have like an hour a week with these people, and that's just not enough. And he was willing to step in, and also he was willing to work with them as a private person, just basically as a friend. And by doing that, he was able to find the hypnotic triggers which were used to program these women. And that's how all that started. And so when, like 15 years ago, when I would listen to Fritz Springmeier talking about all these things about the Illuminati and trauma-based mind control and the Monarch program, which according to him is still rolling out to this day. And it's if you read one of his books, the information is very disturbing, and that there could be hundreds of thousands of these people who are programmed and don't even know about it. And this was back then, 15 years ago, it was very fascinating to me. But I never could figure out where he had all the knowledge from, because it was so in detail that it was mind-blowing just to listen to him. And in this interview with Sean Stone, he clarified a lot of these things. and that was very interesting to listen to. And he wrote a book together with one of the women who he helped. Her name is Cisco Wheeler, and also another guy that I used to listen to, Sage Wanderer. He had an encounter with Cisco, or one of these women that he talked about. And he said he was a Christian pastor, and suddenly there comes this woman to him, and she wants to just talk. And he says that she told him the craziest story that he ever heard in his whole life. And she told him that she is a part of the Illuminati, that she has been mind controlled basically from birth, and that they are still doing this. And that was also very incredible, because I used to listen to Sage Wanderer because he had funny stories, and he's an older man, but he's very funny, and it's incredible that he also encountered one of these victims who told him this story that he, in the beginning, he didn't used to believe. And he only really talked to her because this woman first talked to the head guy of the church that he was working at as a pastor. And the head of the church told him to stay away from that woman because she's crazy. And that kind of inspired him to listen to her. And he met with her, and then he said she told him the most incredible story, that he thought that either she has the most unbelievable imagination in the world, or there's some truth behind that. And then he began to research that, and he found out that there really is such a thing as trauma-based mind control, and all these things. And so that's it. It's pretty heavy stuff to lay on someone who never heard about it. Just the fact that there is such a thing as trauma-based mind control. And it's a very incredible story. So that was also another strange synchronicity, that I found this channel. Basically, Sage Wanderer is his name, on YouTube, and he's just a very funny guy, and he has a lot of insight. He has had a very interesting life. His father was a Marine in the military, and he has just the most incredible life stories, and it's just like a little encouragement listening to him, and also he's very open about conspiracy theory stuff, and it's very interesting to listen to him, and it's just another unbelievable synchronicity that he also met one of these women that Fritz Springmeier was talking about. I think her name was Svali, Svali, and you can find interviews with Svali on YouTube. And so the woman that Fritz Springmeier wrote the book together with, her name was Cisco Wheeler, but there were several of these women. Maybe Svali was one of them, and I'm sure he mentions her name. Fritz Springmeier mentions her name. And it's just incredible that this is still going on. And also Roseanne Barr used to talk about MK Ultra rules in Hollywood, and Fritz Springmeier also talked about Roseanne, and Roseanne Barr, who had the television sitcom Roseanne, she also was friends with Cathy O'Brien, and I think Cathy O'Brien, because she also wrote a book about her experiences, and that's also just absolutely incredible. And pretty disturbing that this is real and really going on. And the book that she wrote together with Mark Phillips is called Transformation of America. And trance is written like being in a trance. So the book's title is Transformation of America. And it's also a very incredible book. And just the interviews with Cathy O'Brien are like, if you hear this for the first time, you immediately go, this cannot be real. But there's no doubt that this is true, because she also has been mutilated, and there are photos of what they did to her private parts. So she, there's no doubt that she's telling the truth. So unless she herself performed an operation on herself, on her own genitals, which is pretty unlikely, and it's just incredible. And there was one guy basically who had enough compassion to risk his life to get her out of there, and he saved her life basically. And she gave her life to Jesus, and they were able to restore her mind, which was strategically and methodically splintered into pieces and each of the pieces was programmed with an alter personality. And I mean, like, there is one book about how that's done, and supposedly the research that laid the foundation for how to do that came from the concentration camps and from Josef Mengele and people like him. Maybe that's also a reason why there was a separate trial, a separate Nuremberg trial just for the doctors, the Nazi doctors. And yeah. And yeah, it was just thinking about that. It was very funny that Sean Stone, who is the son of Oliver Stone, made this interview with Fritz Springmeier and basically unintentionally outed himself as a Freemason. And it took him like 10 minutes to get a hold of himself again and ask questions again. And all the while Fritz Springmeier had a little grin on his face. So yeah. And also what's very interesting is that supposedly Freemasonry has been banned or made to disappear in Turkey because someone made videos with his mobile phone from a few of the rituals that they held, and Erdogan, as far as I know, banned Freemasonry from Turkey. So Freemasonry is no longer allowed in Turkey because someone made a video with his mobile phone from inside of a lodge, a Freemasonic lodge. And that's also pretty interesting. I wish you a good day and thank you for listening.